Good morning. Thank you guys for being here already. Let's start with a breath just to get embodied. So take a long, full inhale and just notice your body, yourself. And then exhale. Let yourself sink and drop. And become still and slow. Today we're taking a final look at chapter 3 of the Tao Te Ching. The final 2 lines, which are 2 lines that I come back to repeatedly. It says, practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. The key thing, well, there's a couple of keys here, right? But the key word for me is always practice. That this is a practice. All of these wisdom figures, everything that they allude to, everything that they teach, no matter the discipline, whether it's traditional philosophy, any religion, any spirituality, any form of wisdom, it comes down to the practice, the actual doing of the living, right? I'm coming to think that the heating system in my building is timed for this class when it starts, because it seems to, I don't know if you guys can hear it. It's pretty loud. It dings and clangs a lot. It's an old New York City building. So if you hear that, that's just the sound of my heat thankfully coming on. It's a little chilly in here. Practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. It's the practice. To me, the ultimate practice is that of presence, of that breath that we just started with. And I started with that on purpose, because that is, for lack of a better word, the work. That is the life, actually. When you take a breath, you become embodied. You connect to yourself. And as science now knows, when you connect to yourself, you are really connected to all things. So practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. So practice is the key word here. And throughout the Tao, you see the word practice many times. There's another important piece about this word practice. It says practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. Everything you've ever wanted, everything, however we want the world to look, practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. Well, we'll talk about what that means. What does it mean that everything falls into place, and what exactly is not doing? But even before we get there, he doesn't say get this right. He doesn't say perfect not doing or perfect whatever it is. He says practicing. That you don't need to get things right for things to be okay. That's it. You just practice. Life is practice, right? I use the example of playing the piano. Works right now because I don't play the piano, so it's definitely not something that I could even speak to. I've never played the piano. I think I played chopsticks when I was like 10 or something at one point. If I was to get on the keys right now, I could maybe make some clanking noise because I have no practice, right? But if I was to start practicing, say just 20 minutes a week, not even a day, but 20 minutes a week, in a week or two, maybe a month or two, I could start to make a little bit of music. But it would take a lot of effort on my part and a lot of thinking, a lot of presence. But I could get some very basic things out, right? And the thing that enabled me to get those basic things out was that I practiced. Now, as a total novice, my practice ain't pretty, right? It's just the act of practicing that gets it right, right? And in fact, when you practice, even if I got it perfect, it doesn't matter. And if I mess the whole thing up, it doesn't matter. It's the act of practicing that I become the music. right? The act of practice is all it takes, right? And then if you go further, if you actually wanted the music to come through you effortlessly, without thinking, you could sing, you could talk, you could have a conversation, you might be able to cook a meal, I don't know. Then you're practicing not just 20 minutes a week or even 20 minutes a day. If you've ever seen a musician who the music just comes through them, they're practicing hours a day. They're practicing whenever they get the chance. Even once they're some perfect, beautiful musician, they're practicing more and more. Because now the practice is fun. Now the practice is it. And then if they're going to perform in some way, well, the performance and the practice become the same. It's just the music. And then should they hit a quote unquote wrong note, they're so well practiced that wrong note becomes the music as well. There is no wrong note. This goes back into how everything falls into place. Nothing is wrong. Now, the practice that the Tao is speaking to is the practice of living. You can live your life like music. You can live your life like a song. It doesn't mean that life all of a sudden becomes perfect. It's that it doesn't matter. That you're living moment by precious, fleeting, unknown moment. And that is the practice. That's why we sit. That's why every Thursday I have a Zoom class, not live on Zoom, because essentially 20 minutes of dead air is not good for a Zoom thing, not good for YouTube, where we just practice sitting. I have a couple of videos up where I essentially give a version of what we do each week in that class, but each week's a little different. Sometimes we sit longer, sometimes we sit shorter, depending on who's there. If it's all people that have been there for a while, we might do 10 or 15 minutes of just total silent sitting. Because it's the practice of being in my body, in the now, not doing, that I begin to connect with how dynamic and how active life is. It's in the not. It's only in my physical stillness that I can connect with how dynamic and moving existence is. It's like the example of being on the train versus being on the platform. If you're on the train, you don't notice how fast it's going. You're on a bullet train if you've been to Japan, right? It feels like you're sitting still. You're not. You're going hyperspeed. If you're on the platform, you can see the movement because you're still, it's moving. Well, the thing is, we're always moving. Movement is, you cannot be totally still, but if you become physically still, the dynamics of the world around you and the world in you begin to reveal themselves. This is why there is a difference between yoga or golf or fishing. In all of those things, you're doing something. And remember, this is saying practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. Practice being physically still, slowing down, not doing. Go into the not, lean back, breathe. Practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. So I spend a lot of time, specifically with my private clients, we talk a lot about what is this not doing, right? Chapter 48, I'm going to jump ahead really quick. Another favorite chapter of mine. Let me see if I can show this. I'm going to go down to the one that's squared. Can I show you? I don't know how to line it up. Okay. Every movement I make is the opposite of what's on the screen. Less and less do you need to force things until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. How could it be that when nothing is done, nothing is left undone? This is because the not doing that I'm speaking of is actually very acutely aware and active. When I'm sitting here, if I'm really staying in the now and not getting carried away by a thought in my mind, it takes a lot of effort at first, just like it takes a lot of effort to first play the piano and then all of a sudden it becomes effortless. At first, it takes a lot of effort to stay here and not get carried away by the mind. Stay here, stay present, stay aware. Breathe. Mind carries me off, come back to the breath. Return, return. As you practice returning to the now, which you can never leave the now. That's this whole thing. You can't get it wrong. You can't get it right. You can't leave the now. You're in it. Even if your head is somewhere else. Even if it was the black of night, the sun is still here, right? Just because I don't see it, just because I'm not aware of it, doesn't mean it isn't. You're always there. You're always in the now. And when you're aware of it, right action becomes clear. So if you've taken my class on Thursdays, I walk you into the 5 steps that I've outlined, specifically, especially for a beginner, of presence. Get anchored in your body and take a breath. Anchored breathing. This is that lower belly breath that I teach and talk about all the time. Take an anchored breath. Become physically still. Slow down. Relax. Enter into the unknown. Become curious, in other words. Remind yourself that it's not what you think. And that last step is really key. This is that practice not doing, practice not knowing. Because the present moment is unknown. You cannot know the present. All of our thoughts, all of our notions are of the past. If I knew, I can't see who's in the class right now. I know there's a bunch of you here, unless you give me a comment or say hi, or I can't see who's here. But even, so say it was one of my best friends that were here, right? Any thought I have of you is of the past. Who you are now is unknown. Not only to me, to yourself, right? So not knowing is intimacy with another person, with the moment, with myself. All knowledge is of the past. The present itself is unknown. So to be truly present, you got to be curious. You got to know it's not what you think it is, right? This is how not knowing and not doing becomes what's often referred to in Buddhism as right action. Right action arises by itself. Less and less do you need to force things until finally right action arises by itself. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. I rephrase that. Non-action is right action. And so I'll walk people through those 5 steps of breathe, still, slow, relax, don't know. And then it takes us a good 10 minutes to really get into that. And each of those steps has a purpose of breaking down your resistance and your barriers to the present moment, to the unknown. We like to know because it gives us a semblance of control. We like to do because it gives us a sense of control. Reality is forever out of control. Right? And there's a freedom and a connection in the not doing and the not knowing that I cannot explain to you, but you can experience it. But that's in the sitting. Just like I can't explain a mango to someone who's never had fruit. Pardon me. You have to taste it. It's the experience, right? So as you practice not doing by just sitting there, you begin to experience life in a new way. And then as that becomes a practice, if you can then carry it from your sitting, from the practice of sitting still into everyday life, somehow, I'm not kidding, everything gets done. It somehow does itself. I don't know how or why this works, but when I am that present, the next thing that needs or wants to be done is always clear. And it comes through me. I don't even have to do it. If you think about doing's of the mind. I think about doing it and then I do it. This not doing is embodied. It's like a bird flying. It doesn't think fly, 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 and then it flies. It just flies. The flying does itself. That's what we're practicing to embody. That your life does itself. You don't have to plan it, fix it, solve it. You don't have to analyze it or understand it. But you do, in my version, don't believe me, never believe me. Test this out for yourself, check it out for yourself. In my experience, if I'm truly present, my life lives through me. Much like music comes through the musician and the dance comes through the dancer, we've got a chorus. We've got my heater making noise. We've got someone with a jackhammer outside. And I'm pretty sure in any moment the kids are going to come out of school and there's going to be a cacophony of joyful children outside the window as well. This is what it means to practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. It's that life does itself the way birds know how and when and where to fly at different times of the year. It's how a beaver knows how to build a dam, and just nature doesn't need to think to do. It just does. It just is. It doesn't do. It is. It just is. You're practicing isness, life, being alive. And that's breath by breath by breath. I'm really wrestling with this idea of not knowing right now as I'm changing careers and trying to figure out what my next career is. I literally don't know and flounder frustrated daily. Oh, I love this. I love this. This is such a right place to be. So, I'm going to pull in somebody else. We're going to go a little over time. Pardon me. I've got to get Rilke. Rilke's got the answer. I have the rest of my books over here. Okay. There's a bookcase there. Okay. I don't know if you guys know Rainer Maria Rilke. He's an old dead German poet. This is Letters to a Young Poet. So he was a very famous poet at his time, and a lot of young aspiring writers and poets would write to him for advice and guidance, and he would write back. At some point, someone found, I guess, in their grandfather's stuff, the correspondence from Rilke, but we don't have the letters from the young man. So it's Letters to a Young Poet written by Rilke. His return correspondence. And so I'm just going to read a passage on here. I have the book. Okay, great. If you have the Stephen Mitchell translation, because if you notice, I'm a big fan of Stephen Mitchell. Everything I read is the Stephen Mitchell translation. Big fan. I like his translations because they're more than just a verbal translation. He's done the practice. He does the work. Much like a musician who's practiced well, the words come through him. He's a wordsmith and a bard. And anyway, I could go on. So if you have the book, Stephen Mitchell, I'm on the bottom of page 22. Is what I'm going to read from. Starting in the middle of the paragraph here, and just some context here. So he's writing to this young poet, and clearly, this poet is giving his opinion of some work called "Roses Should Have Been Here." Right. And apparently Rilke wrote the introduction to the book, probably praising it and lauding it. And this young poet had a very different opinion, is what I'm assuming from the context I've written here. So Rilke says to the young man, in your opinion of Roses Should Have Been Here, that work of such incomparable delicacy and form, you are, of course, quite incontestably right, as against the man who wrote the introduction. But let me make this request of you right away. I'm going to change some of the words here to kind of fit our thing. So it says, read as little as possible of literary criticism. But for our purposes here, I'm going to say, entertain as little as possible any criticism. Criticism. Such things are either partisan opinions which have become petrified and meaningless, hardened and emptied of life, or else they are just clever word games in which one view wins today and tomorrow the opposite view. Works of art, and I would say works of life, the work of living. The work of life is of an infinite solitude, and no means of approach is so useless as criticism. I promise this gets to your point about what to do with work and career. Works of life are of an infinite solitude, and no means of approach is so useless as criticism. Only love can touch and hold and be fair to them. Always trust yourself and your own feeling, as opposed to argumentations, discussions, or even introductions of that sort. If it turns out that you're wrong, then the natural growth of your inner life will eventually guide you to other insights. And this is where it gets to your question. Allow your judgments, your questions, their own silent, undisturbed development, which, like all progress, must come from deep within and cannot be forced or hastened. Like all progress must come from deep within and can't be forced or hastened. You can't force it, you can't hasten it. Everything is gestation and then birthing. Think of an embryo of a child or a seed of a plant, or the creation of a company, or the redefining of your career in life. Everything is gestation, then birthing, right? And think about whether it's a lemon, an apple, a human life, or a career. If you try to get it out before it's ready, it doesn't work, right? It's not viable. Say I try to take an apple off the tree before it's ripe. I can't eat it. It's not going to nourish me. And it can't create new life for another tree. It's useless. It's not ripe yet. I picked it too soon. Everything is gestation and then birthing. To let each impression and each embryo of a feeling come to completion entirely in itself, in the dark. There's the not knowing, the dark, the not knowing, the darkness, the unknown, in the unsayable, in the unconscious, beyond the reach of one's own understanding, with deep humility and patience, to wait for the hour, to wait for the hour when a new clarity is born. This alone is what it means to live as an artist. This alone is what it means to live as a human, from my opinion. In understanding and in creating, whether it's understanding or creating something, it's gestation then birthing, it's patience, unknowing, deep humility. In this, there is no measuring with time. A year doesn't matter, and 10 years are nothing. Being an artist, and I would say a human, being a human means not numbering and counting, but ripening like a tree. There's that analogy. Which doesn't force its sap and stands confidently in the storms of spring, not afraid that afterwards summer may not come. It does come, but it comes only to those who are patient, who are there, who are here, who are there as if eternity lay before them, who are here in the now, so unconcernedly silent and vast. And then this is where I really love him so much. Like, he just nails it. I learn it every day of my life. Learn it with a pain I am grateful for. It's not easy. It sucks, right? He gets it. It sucks. The pain of birthing and gestation, right? I learn it every day of my life. Learn it with a pain I am grateful for. Patience is everything. So to this not knowing and not doing, and how that leads to the right answer. At some point, maybe I'll tell the story of how I created this company and how I created this work, and how what my original vision was for it is nothing like what it is now. But I knew that I had to live what I was kind of preaching and teaching, and all my ideas had to fall away of what I thought it should or could be. And it's really funny. There were times that I didn't do it. There were times I didn't do it. There were times I still tried to force my hand. And actually, I forced my hand for a few years. And that was okay. It wasn't wrong. I really tried to make some other models work of how I envisioned this work and this company being. And they never worked. But there was always something else on the corner that was like, but do it this way. And that would just come to me. I wouldn't have to work for that, but I was like, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. But this kept coming at me. This is the private coaching. I never wanted to be a private. I never thought I wanted to be a private coach. Okay, now the sun is right behind me, so now it's warm. Now I can take off the like 30th layer. Right. This is the birthing and gestation. Getting it wrong. So he says, like, if you're wrong, it's fine. There is no wrong. Keep going. It'll work itself out through that. It was never wrong that I kept pursuing this other notion of how this would look. The right thing kept on being there, right? It just kept being there. And then finally I recognized it, and it still took me a couple of years to go full in on that model. I don't know if this is helpful, but if you can go back to the beginning of this chapter 3 that we looked at today. So go back to a couple of classes ago when we started chapter 3. And it starts with, if you overesteem great men, people become powerless. If you overvalue possessions, people begin to steal. It starts the chapter there and it ends with practice not doing. Because it starts you off to just kind of guide you to what is it that you overesteem and overvalue? What are the things that you're stealing for? What are the things you're trying to do or control for, trying to know and keep? Just become aware of them. Start there. Then the master leads people to their right career, to their right life, which is nowhere but here and now. You're alive only here and now. The future is an idea and you can't know what it is. You can't know what now is. But if you stay in the now, the future will reveal itself moment by moment. It will feel right. It will feel right in the belly. You will know in your body, in your belly, yes or no, right? And sometimes you might be stubborn and be like, I got to go this way, like I did for a few years. But this stuff never felt wrong. I just thought that there were better or other ways to go about things. I was wrong. But this kept coming. And this felt good. This was never work. This was always work for me. Going in the direction that I thought. I thought I wanted to do corporate team training and more like truly in the corporation work. That was always so much work and so arduous. The private coaching, I didn't even try to find clients. They just kept coming to me. And it was never work to do the work. It was enjoyable. I stumbled in the beginning. There was some weird things that I did that I wasn't really sure how to do the private coaching. Even though I was a trained therapist before this was different. I was like, how do I coach people to be in their body and to be in the not know? Like, I didn't know how to do this. But even through my own clients, I would say that my initial clients actually helped me, without them knowing it, they helped me to develop this model. I quickly saw what was working and didn't work. I used to make people stretch in the beginning. That's what I start with. I was like, I don't know what to do. Right? It's like, okay. But people were saying, no, can you coach me? I want to do this one-on-one. I was like, okay. And there was nothing wrong that I did, but I just kept on figuring out, maybe the better word is more righter things that fit. And this keeps evolving. There's no right career or business that I've built. This itself keeps moving and evolving. And if you go back to the very first live I did, my very first video that I did, I think it was in November, where I talk about being nervous, about starting the lives, about doing this. And I really talked about that for a teaching purpose, because what I was doing was new and unknown to me, and how my nervousness and clumsiness in it was right, because I didn't have a muscle memory for this. And I'm still a little nervous and clumsy, but I get progressively more comfortable as I do this more and more, just like playing the piano. Until at some point, this is just it'll be second nature. And I won't look back on videos to edit them and cringe, which I still do. It's okay. But less and less I cringe, right? And I'll be honest, like when you talk about career and right path, I look at so much of what I do, and if I was to get into he says, nothing is so useless as criticism. I could critique everything I put up there. I could actually take everything I have on YouTube, I could easily take it down because I can find fault and things wrong with everything. But that's not the point, right? It's just to do. Okay, it's done, it goes, it's out there, done. Come back to now. Come back to now. Come back to now. The master leads by emptying people's minds of what they think they should or shouldn't do, and that whole confusion that flounders and frustrates you right now, right? Oh, I feel it, right? Emptying the mind, filling the core. Come back to the body breath. I don't know, don't force it. Gestation, then birthing. Stay here. Stay in the unknown. The known will make itself clear at the right time. And that can be longer than you might want it to be. The master leads by emptying people's minds and filling their core, by weakening their ambition and toughening their resolve. An entire video on this from 2 or 3 weeks ago. Weakening their ambition towards some future idea and toughening their resolve to stay here. Stay here. It seems counterintuitive. I know, I've been there. I have to go, do, sell, fix, solve. I had no income when I started this business, right? Like this was literally like, I remember there were times I was like, I'm going to buy that can of oatmeal for $4. And that's what we got for like weeks, right? Like we're going to live off of this. We're going to do this. Because at that point, well, that's a whole other story. And things kept showing up to support me, to keep me going that I didn't expect. And in retrospect, that's how I knew I was on the right path. Right? But it showed itself slowly. I never fell. I struggled. And I struggled mostly because I had an idea of how things should be. Weakening their ambition towards a future idea, toughening their resolve to be here. He helps everyone lose everything they know, everything they desire. And fills their core. Remember my model, not the head, not the heart, the hips. Helps people lose everything they know, everything they desire, creates confusion. You're in confusion. The master's job is to create confusion. And everything in those who think they know. Practice not doing and everything will fall into place. You don't have to get this right. You don't have to perfect not doing. Just practice it. Practice staying here. When you're not doing is because you're here, you're not there. Stay here. And as you practice that, you'll realize everything already is in place. It's already there. I hope that this was helpful and useful. Thank you guys for being here today. I don't know what we're going to do next week. We'll start a new series. We'll do some other chapters, some other reading. I hope this is. Thank you. I'm sitting with you. It's not easy. Acknowledge that it's tough and frustrating. Welcome that in. Remember the Rumi poem. You know, that frustration is your honored guest. Okay, be frustrated. Come on in. You can have a conversation with the frustration. Anything you need me to know, say, or do right now? This is what I do all the time. I have a conversation. I'm angry. I get more angry now that I'm more into this practice, right? All right, anger. Is there anything you need from me right now? Anything I need to know, say, do? No, just be angry. Okay. Yes, go talk to this person. That wasn't okay. Okay. Yes, go write in your journal. Okay. Yes, go for a walk. No, just sit here. Yes, cry. I don't know what's going to come up. But if I'm intimate and curious with what's arising, it will guide me in the now, not in the future. This is what I mean. Everything is for you. Everything is here for us. Everything is always turning ourselves back to ourselves. Thank you guys for your attention, for being here through the whole class. I'm so grateful. Have a great week. Sit strong. If you can, join me Thursday when we actually do the practice. Remember, practice not doing. The practice is key. We can talk about this. It's like talking about push-ups. We're talking about practicing piano. Until you practice, it doesn't matter. So I hope to see you on Thursday for our practice session. The link to get The Zoom link is in the description below, along with all the readings. Well, most of the readings for today. I'll edit it to add the Rilke reading if I can. I'll see if I can find that. I'm not going to type that out. Sorry. It's in the Stephen Mitchell version, page 22 through I think like 25. Thank you guys. Such an honor to be with you. Much love. Bye.